All right, everybody. I could not think of a better song to get us started today. Before I hand the time over to our sponsors and our producer, I just have a few technology things just to share with everybody. First of all, welcome. My name is Shawn Petty, and I'm so excited that you're joining our show today. We are in a Zoom environment. This is Zoom webinar, so it's a little different than Zoom meeting. Um, Everybody is, your videos are turned off and you are muted. That doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. It just means that we're focused on kind of our special guest today. And that's the only reason for that. But if you are burning to say something or you really have something you want to share, you can raise your hand. And our producer and our tech specialist, or director, I should say, our producer is Elizabeth Siri and our director is Paula from Foundations. They will help us get you to share your message. If you want to share any questions, because this is interactive today and we want to address the questions that you bring up to us, just throw them in the chat room. But if you would like everybody to see your question, make sure you select panelists and attendees. That will send it out to everybody so everybody can see your comments and your thoughts and your questions. So thank you. Without further ado, though, I think we're all here. I'm going to turn the time over to Elizabeth. Take us away.
Thanks. Thanks, Shawn. Hello, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Siri. I'm the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning at Foundations, Inc. And I want to thank you all for taking some time out of your day to join us for another virtual edition of Perspectives from the Field talk show. Before we get started, I really want to say a very special thank you to the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation for making this talk show possible. We're continuing our series today on resilience, which has been tackling some really big issues that are facing our children today. And today's conversation will explore the idea of resilience through the lens of literacy and the arts. So I'd like to welcome again our host, White-Riley-Peterson Fellow Shawn Petty, and our special guest today is Sara Quinn, Content Specialist in Instructional Design at the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy. So Shawn and Sara, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll let you take it away, Shawn.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. So I always say that Elizabeth is my Gelman. She makes sure I stay on track and do everything right. And so we have a couple of additional announcements before I welcome our very, very special guest. I do want to highlight for everybody. So this is our third webinar this year. And so we're very, very, very excited to have the talk show virtual like this. But we are doing, I guess you could call it the big show because it's going to be virtual, but it's going to be bigger than ever. And that's going to be at the Beyond School Hours National Conference this year. You can find out more by checking on the link that's in the chat room. Going to Beyond School Hours, you can register. This year's conference, the Beyond School Hours Conference, is going to be amazing because while it is virtual to make sure everybody stays safe and socially distanced, also it's kind of cool. You can attend the conference, with your video off and in your pajamas if you choose. You can attend the entire conference virtually, but it's not going to be a one-time thing. It's going to continue all year long. There are going to be some special learning offerings that are going to happen year-round. So for the price of your admission, you're going to get year-round learning, and you can't beat that. Don't forget today also to use some social media just to kind of shout out some of your thoughts. Foundations has a great Twitter channel and a great Facebook page. And so, maybe in the future we'll be bringing TikTok on too, but right now it's, that's right, Sara? So right now it is Twitter and Facebook. So please use the hashtag #EveryChildEveryday because that's kind of our motto and our theme. So I am so excited to talk. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so that I can bring this amazing guest up on video. I am so excited to chat with this amazing person. Her name is Sara, and she is right there. How you doing today, Sara?
Hi, Shawn. I wasn't kidding that song, the song Rise Up always makes me cry tears. So I'm like a little bit teary right now, to be honest with you. But I feel, it's just such a wild time, and it's such a beautiful song to speak to all the people who are making it work somehow, and
It is so true. It's one of my favorite songs just because it reminds me at least of, kind of just everything going on and the resiliency of people, just good people. So, well, hey, so where are you coming to us live from?
Well, I'm here on my couch in Atlanta. I'm here with my dog, Cleo,
Oh,
who's my
cool.
work buddy. And I'm actually a native of Atlanta. I grew up here and lived in New Orleans and Nashville. And I've just come back during the pandemic to work at the Rollins Center at the Atlanta Speech School to work on the Cox Campus platform of online learning. So that's where I'm
Oh,
at.
that's awesome. Well, let me ask you a question. So you're in Atlanta right now. Are you in like downtown Atlanta or on the outskirts? Or Atlanta's big, so.
Yeah, Atlanta's kind of weird. Y'all who know Georgia know Atlanta's a very spread out city. So I'm in the Kirkwood neighborhood. There's you would maybe go downtown for some things, but it's really like a collection of neighborhoods. So I'm sort of near Decatur but inside of Atlanta.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so you said you're from Atlanta originally, like you grew up there.
I did.
And then you mentioned, so I'm going to unpack, you mentioned like in that string of things that you have done a lot. So you went from Atlanta to New Orleans?
Yeah, well, I went to college up north at Wesleyan University, and then I moved immediately to New Orleans. I never wanted to be a teacher. I thought teaching was something that people who like couldn't move on with their lives did. When I was a kid, I was like, why are they still here? And then I went to New Orleans for a summer when I was 19 and worked with students on the West Bank in New Orleans. It was just a summer program. It was wildly unorganized and like unbelievably underfunded, but the children were and their families were just so amazing. And the culture of New Orleans just blew me away. So I wanted to go back and it made me want to be a teacher.
Really? So New Orleans did that. So like you went there thinking, teaching,
I was like, I'm gonna do this for a summer. And then, yeah, it just really like captured my heart.
So
The work captured my heart. Yeah.
what was it about New Orleans that did that?
Man, I mean, the people of New Orleans, like the kids that I worked with were just so powerful. Like their power was so strong. And part of that was we were in the summer program that was like, just like, so, I mean, to be frank with you, like very mismanaged. Like later this nonprofit running it, like they were convicted of like doing bad stuff with money. Like, to be honest with you, that's what was going on. And so we were there. It was like a bunch of college students and all these middle schoolers. And we were just it was chaos. It was crazy. It was like, just to keep them safe and to keep them okay, like was a battle every day. I was thrown right into the heart of it. But the same power that they had that made it like a difficult environment to be in some ways was also the power that they have of like their resistance, of their voice, their creativity, just like their dancing, their singing, their rapping, the art that they made, like the way they would speak. And yeah, just like powerful. So I wanted to get back to that, learn more about that.
That's interesting. It's interesting because you were sharing, that it was kind of crazy. It was a little mismanaged. There was some weird things happening, but that the kids, the students, the youth, their power kept you going. Can you give an example or tell a story? Like, is there one particular youth moment that just really struck out, or was it a series?
I was 18, so I was 13 years ago.
I love how you're so open about that. That's great.
2020, Shawn, what do we have to hide?
You're right. You're right.
There was like one little girl named Sierra that I really connected with. And she was like maybe like a fifth grader, like she was one of the younger ones. And she would just tell me about myself. She would just be like, I don't know. She just had such an amazing spirit. So that's like one kid I can think of. I know that's not a great story, but
but when you said she would tell you about yourself, like she would tell you about yourself.
What are you doing? Like she was a kid. I was like, I'm in college. I know stuff. I'm grown. And like, she'd be like, why are you doing that? Or like, that's not working. Or like, we don't like this. Or she just was so like open-hearted and honest. And I found that useful for growth, let's say.
That's a good phrase, useful for growth. So we've had kids like that in some of our programs, and they're given feedback, and sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. How did you turn it into a strength?
I mean, who are you as an adult? Just because you're an adult, like you don't want to take feedback like that. I just have never understood that. Like the kids are the reason that we do this. You just have to respect like the inherent brilliance and knowledge of children. Like I believe very strongly that like adults need to take responsibility for being adults, for keeping kids safe, for making sure they learn and have access to things that they have the right to have access to. Like they have the right to learn to read. If in your school, your program, your classroom, kids are not learning to read like that, you need to take responsibility for that. And at the same time, like they know so much about the best way for them to learn, the best way for them to grow, like the best way for you to manage them or to build relationships with them, to create a positive environment for them. So kids are like my number one source of information.
And I bet, and Valika from Tampa, Florida is agreeing in the chat room. She's like, she agrees with you. And I bet many of our attendees would as well. In all our conversations that we've had, you have repeated many, many times the power of youth and their voice, and the fact that their knowledge, they're brilliant. They really do know how they should be taught and how they can learn. And you've tapped into that somehow. What got you there? Like what drove that? Was it that experience in New Orleans when you were 18, or was it something along the way? Or was it something from your childhood?
I was always like a very independent kid. I went to a school in Atlanta called the Paideia School. That's an independent school that is like very into fostering student independence. And so that's what I knew. And it was honest, this sounds stupid, but it was like realizing what public school was like. And obviously that's like a very privileged thing to say and viewpoint, but realizing that the norm was for kids to just not be listened to, not be respected, that was very jarring for me. And I realized that I wanted to figure out why that was, what was going on. I mean, this also, so that same summer in New Orleans is, we went in and we were like reviewing the rules, and there was like one guy who'd been there the summer before, and he was like the leader. And he was like, oh yeah, we're gonna accompany them to the bathroom. And I was like, what? I was like, at my school growing up, we were trusted to go to the bathroom by ourselves. He's like, yeah, well, we found a knife in the bathroom last year, and there were also students who engaged in unsafe activity. And I was just like, So it's like reconciling safety and like reality and what kids are going through and the kind of environments that they're put in with, wanting to do everything possible to fight for student voice and self-determination, independence. So it's never like neat and clean. It's always messy.
That's interesting that you said that. So I want to go back to that experience where it was so funny. You said the gentleman who went 1 year before, all of a sudden he became the leader, like self-appointed, and Chandler Dixon from Texas wrote in the chat room, she writes, how she used to say all the time, yeah, I know this. And she learned, I don't know necessarily as much as I did, but I'm learning.
Right.
So when I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, like, I think for also me as a white person going into working with primarily Black kids in New Orleans, I've worked with, you don't know what their life is like. You don't know their experience. And there's like the education force, at least for teachers, is like vast majority white women, and our public schools don't look like that. And so like you have to question the limits of your experience and the limits of what you know, because there's stuff you just straight up don't know that they know about their lives, So
how did you, so that's a very, very good point, is that there's these, the students that we serve may be different from, that may be a different cultural background or come from a variety of different, than what we came from. And like you said, you were like, oh, he was like, well, we found a knife in the bathroom and so it's unsafe, so we're going to go with them. How do you reconcile, because that happens a lot, various situations like that. I know when I was a teacher and my wife was a teacher in this high school, they locked the bathrooms in between classes. And I was like dumbfounded. I was like, why would you lock kids have to go to the bathroom? They have like 5 minutes to get to class. I'm like, they can barely go to the bathroom anyway, you know? I'm like, and wash their hands. And now I can't even imagine what all the protocol is, but how do you reconcile the safety and the things that happen with the fact that these students are brilliant and yet not get jaded?
I mean, that's like a lifelong society-wide question,
Yeah. Do you have
Yeah.
any thoughts though? Because
I think it's really heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking to work in schools and programs where you don't get to have a balance of that feels good. It's really heartbreaking, but it's like, I think for me, it's been like feeling like I'm a part of changes, even if in my classroom, I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Bathroom breaks in kindergarten, when I was a kindergarten teacher with 32 kids in a public school in New Orleans, the worst part of my day, like bringing 32 little people to the bathroom and, trying to ensure their safety, they're not bored, everything is clean and we're respecting our custodians, like, man, but like, do I feel like I'm at a school where I have a voice where we can talk about that, where like the academic pressure is not such that we don't have time to like give kids space to go to the bathroom, where, I don't know, I think it's like feeling like you're a part of structural changes on the building level, policy level, even like how the building is built,
Yeah.
Feeling like you're a part of those changes and you're having conversations about that so that you don't feel so isolated in your space. I think that's part of what combats that heartbreak.
So making sure that your voice is heard and that you can represent other voices, maybe?
Yeah, if you can. It's pretty tough depending on where you're at, but yeah, finding other people who are working for a change like that.
Yeah. So as you worked in New Orleans, so you did this summer program, you went back and you said you wanted to be a teacher. Then you went back to New Orleans again?
Yeah, then I taught, I was a classroom teacher in New Orleans for 5 years.
Now, and everybody on the show, just FYI, Sara and I've had a preliminary conversation. So if I ask anything and Sara says ouch or whatever, I'm going to redirect because you guys know me. I ask, but Sara's pretty open. So we're going to delve into some things. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to throw them in the chat room so that we can bring them up too. But New Orleans is a very interesting city because it's undergone so many cultural changes. It's undergone disaster. It seems like every time a disaster hits, New Orleans is right in the path of something. The school system has changed multiple ways. They have a different government system with the parishes and wards and various things. So what was your experience with the education system there? Because one thing I know about New Orleans is I know there's a huge charter movement that has gone in, but there's also strong support for public school in the populace. And so that's a tough, when administration is pushing charter magnet and the populace is like, what's wrong with the school that we've gone to for 40 years? Did you see any of that happening or did you see any craziness like that happen?
Man, I mean, answering that question would be like 10 books.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I'm thinking about the parents of my students. Where to begin? The parents want their kids to be at safe schools where their kids are learning and where the community has input. I worked at a school in New Orleans where, so these charters there's no community input about like when the school gets the charter governance of the school. And if you think about traditional public schools in New Orleans, like after Katrina, all of the public school teachers were fired in the months after Katrina, and all those contracts were severed. Their collective bargaining through the union was done away with. And then at the same time, there was legislation that kind of like raised the bar of what schools could be pronounced failing schools and could be taken over. So there was this huge orchestrated influx of charter schools and a huge severing of teachers. The teachers in New Orleans before that were largely middle-class folks, Black women, and New Orleanians. And so then you had this huge influx of people like me, white people and people from outside the state, young teachers, people who didn't have that same experience coming in afterwards to work at these charter schools. So I worked at a school that the community had actually, like, including sort of an interfaith alliance in that neighborhood. Community organizers had fought for the right to determine just what school would go into this beautiful multi-million-dollar building that was rebuilt in their neighborhood after Katrina. This was like, man, it was like years and years after Katrina, they finally rebuilt the school. Like, the community worked for years to be like, we want to decide who goes in. And then they were given a list of charter schools, all of which when they looked at them, they were like, these are not good schools. These are not schools we want. So then they had to fight to get a second list of charter schools. The applications, they didn't really like those either, but one of them was like giving kind of lip service, like, we'll, be a part of the community and all that. So they're like, okay, I guess we'll do this one. So just in terms of like community input, community buy-in, it's just not there. And the school that I worked at, I worked closely with one of the women who was a community leader, a church leader in the neighborhood, who'd been instrumental in choosing that school. And she pulled her grandchild out of the school because she'd felt that the school wasn't meeting any of the promises that they made about community accountability. I mean, they put the Sankofa symbol on the school, which was a symbol that was, I'm just going on and on. I'm passionate about this, Shawn, but it just, like, there were promises made about cultural relevance, about accountability to the Black community there, about the curriculum, about even the quality of the school, and none of those promises were kept. So it's just broken right now, that relationship. And I think there are certainly charter schools in the world that are, good places and places that do have those relationships and do have that accountability. But in New Orleans, it's kind of like just a lot of heartbreak, a lot of broken promises, and a lot of things that sound good. And then you go in there and you're like, this is not a good school. This is not a place that kids want to be. This is not a place that parents feel good about. So that's my long-winded, messy answer to you, but that's just like a first stab.
No, I appreciate you answering that, because I think, right now across the nation, we're having this unique situation where, charter schools and magnet schools and some of the education reform movement is addressing certain things. And then we have public schools who are, tapping into roots and trying to do things. And I think they're coming to this battle. And what's happening is, in our education reform battles that we're having, we're sometimes leaving out the community that we're serving. And yet people are very resilient with that. Like, communities still thrive under this. And so I'm looking at New Orleans, for example. It is, I've been there to play, I've been there to observe, and I love the community. They're such a resilient people, and yet they face so many challenges. What is their secret sauce? What is their...
Yeah. To be honest with you, Shawn, I don't know that I can answer that question as someone who's not from there, didn't grow up there. So I have my own opinions on that, but I feel like that's not the right question for me.
Well, thank you, because then I'll address it to a city you are familiar with. The city that you grew up in and live in right now, Atlanta, has a lot of similarities. What would you say if we were to reverse the thing and talk about Atlanta? What's the secret sauce in people in Atlanta?
I don't know the answer to that either. It's funny because it's like, I just got back here. I haven't lived here in over a decade, and I'm like trying to get my bearings. And through my work at the Rollins Center, which works with Atlanta Public Schools, we're doing a partnership with Marietta City Schools, which is one of the surrounding a suburb of Atlanta. And so I'm starting to learn and see what's going on here, and drawing parallels to my experience in New Orleans, because that's what I know best. But it's different. Yeah, it's different.
Now you also work, Lorena is sharing with us in the chat room that the secret sauce is assistance. Like, I'm assuming, Lorena, you mean helping others or getting help maybe. If you want to clarify, let us know. But you worked in another mecca of culture and mecca of beautiful, diversity embedded in some of the culture, and that was Nashville. Is that right?
Yeah, I went to Nashville to do my master's degree at Vanderbilt in curriculum, like in instruction and like instructional design. And we did, the program I did was a lot of about out of school learning and informal learning, as well as like teacher stuff. So, and I got to work for a little less than a semester at a public school in Nashville that I loved. That's right. Yes. Lorraine, go off. They do need help. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So yeah, Lorraine typed in the chat room, and I think it just went to panelists, but I'll copy it and put it for everybody to see. She basically shared with us that the secret sauce is assistance. And then we asked for some clarification. It said, families need help at the moment with COVID, and from there creating a community based off of the trust given from that assistance. And I think, Sara, you had said too, with your experience with New Orleans, that trust is also built in keeping promises. Because if you don't keep your promises that you make the community, you lose that trust with the community.
Yeah. And like financial resources and like sustained financial resources and financial resources that people in the community have control over. Like I saw schools in New Orleans where money was given to the school, but it was like only for specific things. And it wasn't, the community didn't have a say on how this money was used to make them safer and build that trust like Lorraine's talking about.
Do you feel that happens a lot, that financial resources are given with like strings attached and not really, and therefore they don't necessarily help sometimes?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I do. I think, yeah. That's a whole other.
Another series there.
Yeah.
Well, so now you've turned your passion of working with communities and working specifically with students in previous student voice, you've made that the passion of your work. And you told me a story about an example of where you really did exemplify student voice in a lesson that you were teaching. And it was a lesson that you weren't necessarily comfortable with, but you had to teach it, you taught it, and turn it into something amazing. It's with the fourth graders.
Oh, the fourth graders. I was like, what is he talking about? Yeah.
Would you share that story? Because I think it'll lead us into some other discussion here.
Yeah. So I had the privilege of working at a public school in Nashville called J.E. Moss. That's out in Antioch. And I saw one person said that we're from Nashville. So, like South Nashville is a lot of different immigrant communities. It's a lot of Latino people. We have Kurdish people. I had Laotian students. So we had a lot of different folks in the mix, as well as, sorry, I was looking at that question. So we had a mix of people, and the unit that I was assigned to teach was about the Revolutionary War. And when I was a kid in school, I did not like learning about the Revolutionary War. I thought it was boring. I just thought it was like a bunch of battles. I just did not, it was like snooze fest for me as a kid. So I was like, okay, how do I talk to these kids who are from all over about how this is relevant to their life? And I certainly failed at that some days majorly. But we did a project where we did, oh man, I'm trying to pull up a picture to show you guys. Where is it? Well, we talked about the Declaration of Independence, and we looked at the text of it, because I think kids hear this stuff, fourth graders, but like, what does it actually say? What does it mean? So we looked really closely at the text. We did a close reading. We looked at what the language was, who they were talking about, who they considered a citizen. They asked a lot of questions about like, well, what was going on with enslaved people at that time? What was happening with women at that time? We looked closely at the language about Native Americans and the way that they were called savages And we also looked at these beautiful ideals. I mean, these revolutionary ideas that our country was founded on. And so I had kids, how would you write this? And so we did like a short project where we actually made our own walnut ink and we made our own pens.
You actually made the ink.
Yeah, we did.
Walnuts.
Yeah, I just think with stuff in the past, it becomes so much more vivid for them if they can see like, oh, like you don't type it in on the computer or the iPad. You actually, where did you get the ink? How did you make it? And so like kind of pulling back the curtain for them. So yeah, we went and collected black walnuts from the schoolyard and boiled them and made the ink. And then kids got to write their own versions. So I thought I had a picture for you, Shawn. I had it all ready, but it's hiding from me.
Oh, that's okay. I think it's fascinating that you got fourth graders to really discuss the intricacies of, the language around calling Native Americans savages and what exactly was going on with women during this time. A lot of times, people read the Declaration of Independence and just get caught up, like you said, in the high ideals that are kind of expressed in very eloquent language, but don't dig down into those inner workings. But you were able to get fourth graders to question some things that, historians debate constantly.
It's just opening it up for their curiosity. They were hype about it. It's like, what does it say? What's in there? They're the ones who ask the questions. It's not, we just throw the words up, we look at it and we ask, what do you think about that? Giving them the agency to say like, I can have an opinion about this. I can weigh in on this. So they were awesome. They blew me away.
I love the technique too of taking that document and making it your own. So you said they rewrote it in their own words, or they, so did some of them copy it verbatim? Did some of them expand upon it?
I just found, okay, look,
Perfect.
I'll just show y'all. I'm just going to show y'all like a couple. Oh, I can't share. Oh, well, here's Michaela's. I can't read hers. Let me see. I'm like reading upside down, y'all.
No,
all men and women are created equal. That's one that, what's this one? They're so funny. Oh, okay. I wish I could show you guys. Oh, here we go.
You can share now. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay. Let's see. We're having a technology moment here in 2020. That's what we're doing.
So I love that. So you said one said all men and women are equal.
All men and women. Yeah, it was just, all people are created equal and kind to each other. That was what Andy wanted to write.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And kind to each other.
All men are created equal, says Kevin, and all kids are created equal. He wanted to talk about youth and like youth being a part of the conversation. And this was a dude who really had a lot of work avoidance, and he was like so excited about this project.
Really?
Mm-hmm. This one's Delilah. Everyone's created equal. I think it's not fair to have laws about African Americans. I think that everyone should have rights, not just men. So she just went in. All people are equal, even gays, black, and slaves. That's what James said. So we just, we should let everybody have freedom, independence for everybody. All color skin should be equal. So, that's it. All genders are created equal. All skin tones are created equal. That's Samuel.
Wow.
So they were just so excited about it and so proud to bring those home.
Those are some deep concepts. So that's cool. Did they latch on them and really explore them later, or was it kind of a one-time exercise that, kind of taught them about that section, then you moved on?
I mean, to me, that's talking about identity and justice is like integral to everything I do as a teacher or as an instructional designer. It's like, to me, that's not like a one-time lesson. It's like always something we're talking about, even down to looking at the text of a math problem or looking, anything that we do. I think you got to bring that lens and show kids that space is safe for them to bring their questions. The example I can think of is we were watching and looking at some resources about the Revolutionary War. And I had children, I had 9-year-olds saying, what about enslaved people? What about Black people? What were they doing at this time? Because none of the materials that I was given to show them had Black people in them. They were omitted, even though people were there, you know, people were even fighting alongside people. I mean, it's like, yeah. And they know, that was them who noticed it and wanted to discuss. So
That's so cool. So I love that. I love that example. I love those pictures. Those are beautiful, first of all. And such cool kids, you know. And the fact that you did the almond ink, I mean, that's even better. So I'm gonna take us in a different direction, then I'm gonna bring us back. But I'm gonna steer off real quick into arts a little bit. So you have a passion around not only language, but also art. Is that correct?
yeah, I'm an artist. I didn't want to be an art teacher at first because I was like, art is my thing. Like that's how I express myself. But I want to be the teacher that helps kids figure out how they express themselves, like whatever that is.
Okay.
And then I kind of, you know, art is for everybody, and it's such a powerful tool that I've relaxed that a little bit. And I ended up working as a visual arts teacher for a few years, and also I just bring that to whatever
So
I do.
what's your art medium? Like, what do you?
I'm a bookmaker for the most part. So I make books. I often will set the type and write the words and do letterpress. I do screen printing and other image making, and then I actually make the physical books. What did Esther say?
No way. Esther's sharing that she was born and raised in New Orleans.
I would love to know what Esther thinks about all the rambling I did about New Orleans, because I know New Orleanians are the ones to ask. Yeah. So, but that's my art form. I also do a lot of natural dyes and kind of work with fiber and fabrics.
That's fascinating. I've never met a bookmaker before, so that's really cool. So how do you? So you have this passion for student voice. You've worked in very interesting communities that are diverse and have years of culture, but are also facing some systematic, some administrative, some policy issues that they're dealing with, and then also trust in community. How have you taken all of your passions and put that to work at where you're at today?
Well, so I'm at the Rollins Center now in Atlanta. The speech school in Atlanta is a school it started as a school for the deaf. It was a free school, and it's expanded to be for kids with language and literacy challenges. And it's mostly like an early childhood school, but there's also a school for kids with dyslexia. And then through that, they kind of said, well, we can't just do this work here at this private school. We need to expand this to public school and really to share this work about best practices for kids in the area of language and literacy with everybody. And so we have the Rollins Center, where I just started working in March, as well as the Cox Campus platform. And the Cox Campus platform makes all this amazing professional development and resources that is all rooted in the science of reading, available to anybody who signs up. So that I was really excited to start working here because it's amazing quality resources.
Sure.
Aligned with what I believe about education, and it's all free. You just sign up and you can take courses and download resources and be a part of the community.
That's cool. Do you mind if, since you can screen share, would you share a little bit with us?
I would love to share. And I didn't forget your question, Shauna, about how that relates to the arts too. All right, here it is. So when you guys go to Cox Campus, and I really hope you will, you'll see this. The best thing to do is to create an account, because that's going to allow you more access and to all the different features. But once you make your account, you can go, there's courses. So I'm not sure whether the attendees are in the space of younger kids or if you're in the elementary school space or even older. But oh, look, it's going to take all day to load for you guys. But we have coursework for teachers, for families, and healthcare providers in the area of infants and toddlers, if you work with preschool and pre-K, up through K through third. And to me, I've taught fourth grade, I've worked with middle school and high school. There's content here that is relevant to a lot of different educational spaces. So some of the kind of courses that are available is about creating the classroom ecosystem. We have a really great course about literacy assessment, with a bunch of free, amazing research-based assessments that are available that my colleagues created. we have a class on targeted small group. And then a few of my colleagues just made this course, Meaningful Read Alouds, which is a beautiful course. And that grew out of what we call the live work. So there's a few of us who are working in public schools in Atlanta, working and teaching teachers about best practices in literacy. And then they film those kids and those teachers just doing amazing work. And then they share that out with these courses on, how do you make read alouds really meaningful? How do you use read alouds to build kids' empathy, build their imagination, to expand their vocabulary and their ability to comprehend what they're reading and hearing? So, and then the last thing I wanted to show y'all, and sorry, all of these courses have tons of resources. So downloadable resources, things you can use as a teacher. And then the last thing I'll show you that came to mind, Shawn, when you talked about integrating the arts, this summer we were called on to create something for kids who were home, who didn't have access to schooling or access to summer programs. And with my colleagues, we created the pop-up learning. And pop-up learning is it's kind of like an online video summer literacy course for kids and families. And the themes we focus on were emotions, we did identity, we talked about voice, which you and I keep hitting on, and that question about community. And so through these little video lessons, there's like a joyful morning meeting, they get to read a beautiful book. And we worked with the Alliance Theater here in Atlanta to do arts integrated projects virtually. And so we had these amazing teaching artists from the Alliance Theater. We did like a poetry workshop virtually 1 week where they could contribute poems about their emotions and how they were feeling. This one's with the poet Maya Lawrence.
Yeah.
And then kids actually got to submit their poems on our online message boards. And at the end of the week, she used all their poems to create this really beautiful spoken word piece that she shared. So I'm just so excited about this program because it's really about how do you bring best practices in literacy and just make sure that the arts are there to bring it alive, to make it meaningful and make kids feel like they're doing something that matters to them. So that's I could talk about Cox Campus all day, but I'll stop. But just wanted to show you guys a couple examples of the kind of things that are available to you, and please share them with your families. Ooh, Rhonda knows it. Yes, Rhonda. That's so exciting. And we've got some new courses coming out. So we've got a phonics course we're working on. The dual language learners or English language learners course is coming soon. So keep checking back to see what stuff we've got for y'all.
Now that's fascinating. So you said all this is free.
It's free. It's so cool. Yeah.
So just free.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing's free anymore.
Nothing is free. Yeah, just free. So that's it. When I was teaching in New Orleans, I became very interested in literacy. Mm-hmm. I was like, older kids weren't reading and writing how they should. So I taught kindergarten to see what was happening and really learn the foundations. And I found that I was often being given curricula or policy, but I wasn't being empowered as a teacher with knowledge. Mm. And I was like, okay, hold up. I want to know the science of this. I want to know like how to teach kids to read in a meaningful way beyond just what, any given year, because teachers know it changes, right? Sure. And you need to know what's best for your kids. So I went and I looked up like, okay, at fancy schools in our country for kids who struggle with reading and literacy, what are they doing for kids? I kept seeing Orton Gillingham and structured literacy. Okay. I was like, let me go. So I found a program across the country. I went and got this training. I happened to get it for free, but normally it's thousands of dollars to get trained in Orton Gillingham and get trained in structured literacy. And Cox Campus is just working to try to get all this stuff for free for teachers so that everybody, because every kid deserves teachers who know this stuff, teachers who are empowered. So I get very hype about the freeness of our resources, Shawn.
I mean, it's super, super exciting for me and for our listeners because most of our audience works in some type of informal learning space, like not necessarily during the school day, although many do, but our main focus is kind of that after school or that non-traditional time. Yes. And there's not, sometimes there aren't a lot of resources. And so finding a free resource that helps us align with the school day, but also reinforce we don't want after school or the non non-traditional school time to become like totally driven by the way the curriculum pathway goes towards the standardized testing. You know, we want it to still be creative and innovative and new. And it sounds like the Cox Campus is providing resources that will improve literacy, but still allow kids to focus on, you know, culture, art, and their own community, their own voice, their own thoughts. And so what a great resource set. Thank you.
I would say also, Shawn, to those folks working in those informal or non-traditional environments, we would be so excited to have you on Cox Campus. You can always ask questions on the community board, be like, how would I do this in after school? And I don't think after school should be school. Kids have been in school all day. They need that different experience, but you have such a unique opportunity to build children's language. And that is something as a teacher I never learned about, was how important it is to have rich linguistic interactions to build kids' vocabulary, to build their syntax. And like after school is such a rich time to do that, because you're doing stuff that kids care about, hopefully. And so you can have conversations with them where they can push and expand their language. So please check out some of those language focused courses, because I think you'll find it really aligns with the work that y'all are doing that I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, it's so interesting. By the way, Teresa says, you know, that you're talking so natural. It's great.
That's all I know how to do, Teresa. So,
so in our last show, we had Julie from Alaska, and she shared, she's passionate about language, and her focus was kind of like languages that are slowly but surely were kind of lost, but are kind of re-emerging. So for her up in Alaska, it was a lot of the native or indigenous people of the time. Like a long time ago, they were told not to use their language. They were actually punished for speaking their language. And now there's kind of a resurgence in that language. So tell us a little bit about the power of language as you understand it, because you've been able to use it very well with your students.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, Shawn. Like where I was teaching in Nashville and in Tennessee, there's laws and rules like preventing kids still from using their home languages in the classroom, and from teachers from using those home languages if they can use them. So I wasn't supposed to give curriculum materials in Spanish or instruction in Spanish, even though for some of my students, that's the only way they could access the content. So that stuff is still going on today, and in the way that we regulate, you know, the speech of African-American kids or other kids. So yeah, that kind of regulation and suppression of language is still going on, and in the way that, you know, kids don't get to use their home language as the gift that it is at school. Yeah, but I can be positive. There's I don't know, I think when you can align what you're doing and to show kids this isn't a hoop for you to jump through or something adults want you to do. This is something that is going to get you where you want to go.
Sure.
So that to me, that's when like the magic really happens with kids, is when it's something that they want to do, and not something you trick them into, but something that it's meaningful to them. They care. It's something that's one of their interests. It allows them to get deeper on understanding of who they are, their community, where they come from. You know, it's something that they learn about something they didn't know how to do that is all of a sudden such a great passion for them. That's when I feel like literacy learning is the most impactful, even down to phonics, you know, and down to all the little units of learning that we do. I think there's a way to make it meaningful for kids and make it clear that if they can learn this, they can then use it to do the things in the world that they want to be doing. So
if we were to take this non-traditional space, this after-school space that we work in, if you were to leave us with a couple of things that we should look at, like, and I'm going to go back to focusing on resilience, and I'd like to think about how literacy and art might be able to build some of that. What would you advise us to do? So we're very fortunate in the after-school field. Like you said, we don't have, right now at least, and hopefully forever, if advocates like us continue, we don't have those, you must teach after school has to look like this. And, you know, and for every hour of instruction, you have to give 2 hours of reinforcement instruction. And we don't have the that rigidity of structure. A lot of our programs are very free and very able to create, and do innovative things. So with that being your medium, with that being the canvas that you could paint a picture for us, what picture would you paint? What challenge would you throw out to us that we could do to move the bar with students' literacy, with their voice, with their engagement of using art to become resilient? That's a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I mean, I think y'all know, y'all are the best people. Y'all are out there. You know your kids the best. So I would hope that comes from asking reflective questions about whatever context you're in. Because I know there's people on here from all over with all different kids and all different needs. I think it's like asking yourself those questions, like, does what I'm doing give kids the chance to really know who they are and what they have to say? Does what I'm doing build their language and give them the chance to speak and to talk about things that matter to them, when we know that children are silenced so often at school in times when that language development is crucial? So I think asking those questions about voice and language, to me, that anchors it in. And of course, like the chance to build those beautiful relationships with each other, with adults and people from the community that I've seen after school programs are just so excellent at.
Thank you for saying that. It's we were saying in the programs that I work in, I constantly tell people, kids really don't care until they know how much you care. Like when you demonstrate to a kid that you, not just because you're told to do it or it's a job or you got to, but when you actually care about kids, mysteriously things open up. I'm one of the, when I walk into a school or I walk into some of the programs we serve, I mean, I get looked at real strange because, here I am, middle-aged, white, fat man, right? And sometimes I get kids who call me out. And they're like, what are you doing in Third Ward of Houston? And they're real. And I just say, gosh, I don't know. I'm trying to help. What can I do? And at first they're always like, whatever, they're very standoffish. But as you continue to work with them and they start to realize that, wow, you do care, all of a sudden doors open up that you've never seen before. Like my first experience of working in inner city Houston, I remember the after school site coordinator, her name was Jimmy Baxter. She came up to me and she said, boy, you better lock your car in here. And she made me move my car and she walked me to my car every night and everything. But after serving in her community, and I didn't understand why, honestly, I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, just trust me. I'm like, okay. After working in that community for 3 months, she's like, you can walk to your own car now. Everybody knows you, and she was like, everything's fine. It was such a change. When people know how much you care, it's amazing how communities change. Has that been your experience?
Definitely. Yeah.
So we're down to our last 6 minutes, and we have some folks are chatting in the chat room, some beautiful comments and some thoughts. Trust is earned.
Did you see? Patricia says that when they use their home language, you got a story from each word. That's so beautiful.
That is, and that's children from Haiti, so
cool.
Valika's sharing, that in their conversations, you can teach them the proper way of saying words too, in the language they hear most often. Great comments. It's so beautiful, and trust is earned. Absolutely. So we're down to our last 6 minutes. You're talking to about 70 to 80 people online right now, and probably about 300 to 400 that will watch this show. Your advice is going to move the bar, and if you were to say just whatever's on your mind to folks, the best advice that you could give those of us working at this time, at this moment with the kids in a pandemic that we hope is coming to a close, but we're not sure, in a time of turmoil, what would you tell us?
Man, Shawn. I have so many things going through my head right now.
We got some time.
I think to me, I think this is all right, this is one. I think if you're working with kids who've been marginalized now or in our history in some way, I think every adult has to like question over and over again, am I fighting the assumption that there is something wrong with this kid or with their family, with their community, something that needs to be fixed? I think to me, like, that's what I really deeply wish at the schools I've worked at. I wish the administrators were asking themselves every day, teachers, whoever. Can we go from a place where we believe that this child is perfect, they do not need to be fixed, they have everything they need? How do we remove barriers, take things out of their way so that they can shine, so that their family can shine, their community can shine? Financial barriers, language barriers, learning barriers, tests, structures that aren't working for them. What can we do? What's in our power to remove, to fight, to speak out against, so that there's no assumption that they need to be fixed? That's what I'll say today.
I'm gonna, if you don't mind me adding to your narrative a little.
Please.
I love that thought process. I love that chain, because it's not for us to fix anything. It's for us to help them grow and clear the path. And I love that imagery of, I'm just thinking of images, and I'm like, when we plant a seed, it's not for us to go fix the seed, and it's for us to water, nurture, give it the resources that it needs to become the beautiful flower that it can, or the tree that it grows into. And so your advice is so profound. Thank you. Thank you for sharing the resources from Cox Campus. Everybody, it seems like the audience already knows. So the show was really just reinforcing kind of what everybody already knows, right? But I know, please, everyone online, go check out Cox Campus. Look at the resources. I myself, I'm going to check out. I love slam poetry. So when you were mentioning some of the poetry things, I'm going to jump in there, because I love the dynamics of how poetry plays off each other.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm going to drop my email in the chat if there's anybody who wants to get in touch. I would love to. I wish I could talk to y'all, instead of looking at this screen, but I'm so grateful, Shawn, to have the chance to talk with you and hear from you.
Well, it's been great, and I'm surprised your co-host over there has been quiet the entire time.
She just literally sleeps all day, just like this, while I work all day.
What a great life. That's awesome. Well, I cannot thank you enough. I mean, the work that you do, I always say that, we're kind of fighting for what's right, and we're warriors of light, or warriors of justice, in the sense that we use the tools available to us. And so you've worked in some major Mecca cities of culture, but areas that are struggling. And I'm so glad that you're now with the Rollins Center helping Cox Campus. And we're going to see your work and more come out of you as time goes by. And I can guarantee you some folks are going to automatically start doing walnut ink making declarations, because that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn the time back over to Elizabeth.
Guys, what another incredible conversation. Thank you so much. We want to thank again the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation for sponsoring this virtual edition of Perspectives from the Field. And I want to thank our fabulous host, Shawn Petty, and Sara Quinn. You were amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And I want everybody to make sure you check out the Cox Campus resources. They are free. They are amazing. So go ahead and check those out. We hope that you'll join us for Perspectives from the Field. The big show at the Beyond School Hours Conference will be virtual this year, February 17th through the 19th. You can register now at the website. We'll make sure that that is in the chat for you. And one of the things that Shawn mentioned earlier is special about the conference this year is we're going to extend the learning year round. So we want to make sure that you are getting the Beyond School Hours experience all year in 2021. So please follow us on social media. If you send us a tweet, chat, like us. We really hope that we can continue these amazing conversations together. So again, we just want to thank you for your time, and we hope that we'll see you again at the next